Hi everyone, welcome to Priority Holder. Today we're playing Mardu Warriors in the Timeless format. So the card that prompted this deck is Najeela the Blade Blossom, famously strong in the Commander format, and it has the ability that whenever a warrior attacks, you can create a 1/1 white warrior token that's tapped and attacking. It has like 5 mana extra combat one also. But basically if you can attack with a ton of warriors, you make a ton more attacking warriors and it just snowballs really quickly. So we have a bunch of warriors to get on the board early and just get the damage flowing. And then it works really well also with creatures that buff power. So we have Honored Crop Captain and Chief of the Edge to do that, because all of a sudden the attackers you already have get boosted, and then the ones you generate off Najeela get boosted, and it just gets out of hand. Also notably, Ajani makes 2 warriors, so that's really nice. So we have some hand disruption, so let's go aggro some people out. So this is a reasonable hand. Like, we don't have any like hand disruption, so if it's a combo deck we're playing, then we're pretty disappointed. We're just going to play the Courtyard and Warrior and slam a Bashtronaut. We're going to start our engines, and has really, with Menace, has a strong chance of hitting them and getting the next level. So, right, so fetch land from the opponent. So, going to play a starting town here just because we're almost like just guaranteed to play in Ajani and not going to ding ourselves with the damage. So we're going to crash in, hopefully like make some user removal spell. We don't care about the Bashtronaut that much. Alright, so our engines go to level 2. We're going to play an Ajani. Alright, let's see what they do. Alright, so it's a red-white surveil land surveilling away a red-white land, so it's almost certain that we're playing energy at the moment. Alright, so they're shocking that in with the Guide of Souls and a Static Prison. Okay, so they're going to target Ajani. They don't want to mess with that. They probably play it themselves and know how strong it is. However, that Village Rites we drew is like incredibly clutch. And I honestly wasn't quite sure what to play like in like the last couple slots, so I put a couple Village Rites in because we have a lot of expendable creatures, and it's like a nice little wombo combo with Ajani. So you'll be able to see it in action here. It's no Goblin Bombardment, but it draws us some cards. So we're going to sack the Summoning Sick Cat token to prompt an Ajani flip. Doing this all pre-combat, that way we could take down the Guide of Souls and just not have to worry about it. They're already up to 2 energy. It could get real nasty real quick. So, alright, so we'll take down Guide of Souls, crash in. Feeling pretty dang good about our position. Not to mention speed level 3, you know. So, I mean, the thing is, if you can get to level 4, like the Menace Double Striker is no joke, you know, especially with all the ways we have to pump power. Alright, Raptor finds a Goblin Bombardment. Could have been worse. Alright, and then a Static Prison is, yeah, it's going to take down our other Ajani. So, well, that is not great that they have a first striker, and also Goblin Bombardment is insanely strong against all of our X1s. So, I'm going to play Chief of the Edge here. It's going to boost the power and everything. And despite them having just like a super easy block right here, I am going to crash it, because if you notice, they're already down to 11, and so this is like 5 free points of damage. It also gets us to level 4 on the speed, and we could play a Cacophony Scamp. Basically, I'm just trying to rush them down at this point before they can stabilize. And so it seemed worth it to sort of just chump attack a creature in like that. I'm going to, yeah, as I was choosing red source, the opponent packed it in, so they just couldn't keep up with our start. That hand was too clunky. This hand, it's tough. Do you keep both hand disruption cards? I think it depends on whether you're going first or second, but I could see a strong argument to keeping both of them. Oh, this is not great. Faithless Looting, and then into a Grief, and this is why you keep both pieces of hand disruption. Just put like a random 1-drop back, because we could see the opponent has some really nasty things planned for us with Sire of Insanity and Bahamut in the graveyard. And I'll go ahead and take this chance to link a reanimation deck of my own. And as we complete this fetch crack right here, please Irration Sunshield the like button if you like seeing experimental tribal decks. So we're going to play Bashtronaut, but we're not loving our chances right here. Our opponent's going to crack their fetch, and it's a persist. And they got a Bahamut in play, which is going to blow up our creatures. So, I mean, who knows? Maybe they had redundant reanimation effects, but you could see how much better it would have been had we kept both pieces of hand disruption and just put a random 1-drop back, you know. So, the thing is, Bahamut's first 2 chapters blow something up, so like there's, even though it's like a temporary creature, it's going to accrue too much value, and yeah, so we're already on to the next game. So games can end pretty quickly sometimes in Timeless, and I think it's very important to have the hand disruption in this deck. Like, it helps, gives you mileage. Like, there's just too many combo decks to not play some kind of interaction. So we're running 6 discard spells. Might even need more. And it looks like we're playing another combo deck, seeing Sultai mana, Chromox, and they stuck a show and tell under it, which is never a great sign, because that typically, I mean, if they're sticking a show and tell under Chromox, it means they probably have like all the pieces they need. So unless they just have like an abundance of show and tells right now. So they're doing another Chromox, and they're sticking a Veil of Summer and passing. So it looks like they have a sort of clunky hand that maybe they're just trying to set up like a dig through time right now. They almost assuredly have like a show and tell still in hand. So we have to keep that in mind, and I have to be very mindful of the colors here. So we need red mana more than anything, but we also can't cast our hand disruption off our like Cavern of Souls and courtyards and stuff like that. So you just have to keep that in mind. Now the thing is, Najeela plus Chief of the Edge is like a super fast clock. So you can see us crashing in here for a ton of damage, and we basically have just given the opponent one turn. They probably didn't feel like they were that close to dying from that point. Alright, so they're gonna brainstorm. And I'm just like, at this point you just gotta cross your fingers, just be like, please, like, don't have it, don't find it. You know, their whole deck is dedicated to finding the combo, but alright, so that's a Surveil land, so like they don't have much mana left. And there's the dig. So like, I don't know if they could even possibly have it right now. So by some miracle, they didn't have it, and we win that game. And that just goes to show you the closing power of Najeela. Like, it gets out of hand really quickly, especially if you have any way to boost the power of your warriors. And the fact that it's like, it just keeps growing like exponentially, like the amount of warriors you have, each attack and make more warriors. You know, like it's really strong. Oh, a hand disruption spell is super clutch right now. Thankfully we have a fetch land to cast it. Now it will force us to play off curve. So, like, you know, we'd love to slam like an Ajani right here, but it seems like it's like obviously we're playing like a show and tell deck right here. So we're gonna Inquisition and going to take Born Upon a Wind. So they actually don't have any green mana, and so right now all their cards are stranded in hand. So, and they just find another blue source. So, I mean, we are off to like a pretty slow start right here. But the thing is, Najeela can like flip that around quickly. So the opponent has a bunch of dead spells. We're going to start making extra warriors. I'm playing Najeela first to get the extra warriors into play, and then going to play Chief of the Edge next turn as like a power boost. And also you can double spell because the Ajani also costs 2 mana. So it makes way more sense. With the tribal lands, you do have to be sort of careful, so I'm just being extra cautious that I don't get the wrong, but I think our colors are pretty much covered no matter what. So we're going to be able to crash in, and because it's sort of designed for multiplayer, you do have to like click confirm every single time you want to make a warrior. But the opponent can't get the combo off, and we get another win. So love to punish the combo decks when they stumble. Thoughtseize is going to be pretty clutch right here. We are going to lose a ton of life, and it is concerning against a Lurrus deck because they're typically more aggressive leaning. So this is a sort of rough. I could actually see mulliganing the hand because we just have one creature. This is really tough. This is an exceptionally strong hand. Like, I don't even know what you could even take to make yourself feel better, you know. I end up taking Guide of Souls because it just makes the Ocelot Prides go off easier, and I figure my 2 toughness creature can at least like hold off the Ocelot Pride attacks for now, but it is just not a good position to be in, especially because they're going to Thoughtseize us at some point. So I'm going to slam Chief of the Edge and like just try and like wall off the Ocelot Prides while we can. So like if this is like Lightning Bolt right here, then this could already be over, so we'll have to see. My opponent's going to Thoughtseize us and examine our hand. Yeah, they're just going to take our creature. So this is where Village Rites looks pretty lame. Like, obviously when you're flipping Ajani's with it, like, it looks incredible. Alright, we're just drawing a ton of Chief of the Edge. Going to play Cavern and then play Chief of the Edge. Now Ragavan's really annoying because it's a creature we don't want to let through. Now after thinking about this for a while, I'm like, you know what, I just gotta attack. Like, it's not gonna get better just sitting here, and they have a painful mana base as well, so we're gonna knock them to 9 and maybe make them start playing defensively, because we do have 8 power of attackers at the moment. So now the thing is, they have like amazing fault. Like, they could just play Ajani and Ocelot Pride, and then we're with the first strike blockers are pretty much toast. So they're gonna force our hand with the Village Rites, and I'm just going to sacrifice to try and draw some action. It is looking pretty bleak right now, just a Cacophony Scamp. It does play pretty nicely against a lot of the X1s and energy though, so like it can block a first striker, then shoot something down, but we're not exactly loving our situation right now. Alright, so they peeled an Najeela off the top. Now this is the insanity of the energy cards. Just by playing a couple, like 3 mana of spells, they created, I don't know, like 20, 10 power creatures just like that, with the Ocelot Prides hitting City's Blessing and duplicating everything. So pretty dang strong. Keeping this hand, and I mean, like, it's a pretty reasonable curve out. The one major weakness is that we have a tap land. Like our one tap land in the whole deck is the Surveillance, which we have in hand. So for that reason, I could see mulliganing the hand, because we have like the low mana values to curve out, but like the turn 2 tap land is like pretty tough. And we're going to want a 3rd land for Najeela, so we're going to get rid of that Bushwhacker. I'm going to crash in with Bashtronaut, just get the car rolling with the engines, and play Cacophony Scamp, which it can at least trade with the Guide of Souls if they attack, so it can hold it off. Alright, the opponent also has a tap land in turn 2, so makes us feel a little bit better. Alright, they're going to Swords the Bashtronaut, which we're very happy with. That's like not a high priority creature for us. Alright, so here's the question. Do you set up a little bit with like Honored Crop Captain plus Bushwhacker, and then try and hammer them with Najeela next turn? But the thing is, who knows how many first strikers they're going to play next turn and like ruin our day. Like, so I decided to go for a setup turn, especially because let's say we slammed Najeela and attacked with Cacophony Scamp. Well, they just block the warrior token with Guide of Souls anyway. So I decided it was better to set up a little bit. And remember, you hit the Cacophony Scamp, when it hits a player, has the option to sacrifice itself. So that could lead to some winning lines where you hit them and then sacrifice it to deal even more damage, especially if its power is being boosted by Crop Captains and Chief of the Edges. So we're going to retaliate with the damage and kill the Bowmasters. The opponent missed a land drop there. So the question is, do we do another setup turn, or is it time to crash in with Najeela in play? And I decide it's time because we can stack the triggers in this manner so that all the warriors come into play and then receive the Crop Captain's power boost. That way Guide of Souls doesn't have any good blocks. So feeling reasonable, have a bunch of creatures in play, and like Chief of the Edge is going to shell out a ton of damage. We're just like praying that Najeela survives right now, but the thing is, they have like a ton of removal in their deck, like Static Prisons, Galvanic Discharges. We've already seen Swords. Alright, Amped Raptor, I'm like, okay, like just spin into some random creature. Like, I honestly don't even care what it is. But they spin into a removal spell, which is pretty dang unfortunate. So that's going to cut down Najeela. And were it not for that, I think we'd have been in like an incredible position. So now things are getting out of hand because they have double Guide of Souls, which they can dump a ton of counters onto it here, but they're just going to play it safe. Not to mention double Guide of Souls is going to gain them tons of life in the long game as they just keep playing stuff. So going to play Ajani and just run out a Goblin Bushwhacker, no kicker, just trying to go wide because, we can possibly surprise them. Oh, dang, that sucks. So Thoughtseize is going to take Chief of the Edge. Well, we could have maybe surprised them with a ton of damage. It would have been an unexpected amount of power, perhaps. for all of our attackers, even without Najeela. So, but this is the power of Guide of Souls here. So now I don't think this deck is like top tier by me. I'm talking about warriors as constructed. It's just me playing around trying to see what's good and what's not. I do think it maybe has a place in the metagame off the strength of Najeela. Like, you could see how much it snowballs, but having to like having to play stuff like Honored Crop Captain is sort of tough. Like, Chief of the Edge is just so much better, just granting the power boost. So we're gonna die next turn, so I'm crashing it and hoping they maybe miss some blocks. But even with how poorly things have gone and how much life they've gained, you can see that like we almost got them anyway. So that one I think was closer than it seems. But talking about like this power level, this deck, like, I think it's going to struggle against energy for a lot of reasons. Energy, just the sheer power level of the creatures is really high, but they also have tons of first strikers, which line up really well against all of our like X1s and stuff. So the energy matchup I think is always going to be a little bit tough. But as you can see, we can beat up the combo decks. So, alright, so opponent played a Shifting Woodland, and we don't have the third land yet for Najeela, but we're just going to empty our hand and just prepare for like a big Najeela attack should we find that land. Alright, opponent's going to traverse the Umwald. Now, that makes me feel like they're like a dedicated Shifting Woodland deck if they're running stuff like that. And then we can see what's going on. So they put some Haymakers in the graveyard. We draw another Najeela, we don't draw a land, so we're just going to kick Goblin Bushwhacker here and just slap them for a bunch of damage. But the opponent has some really nasty things in there, including an Ulamog and a Godpharaoh's Gift. Not to mention they're like well on their way for Delirium also. Alright, there's Malevolent Rumble. So I have not actually tried a Shifting Woodland deck though, but I've battled against a lot of interesting takes on it. So we see some more Haymakers hit the graveyard, including an Elishnorn, and Delirium is on. So I'm just like, okay, well, I have to do something. So I'm going to play Chief of the Edge and just crash in. And we're basically praying that they don't find like a fourth untapped source right here. And we are so close. Like, we had them down to 7. And just praying they don't have the untapped source, but they have it. So they're going to Shifting Woodland into Godpharaoh's Gift, which is going to immediately trigger, and they're going to make a copy of Elishnorn, which, because it reduces the power, we don't even get the like damage from the death trigger right there. And so all of our creatures are X2s except for Jegantha, so it means we're just dead right here. So that was a tough one. Move on to the next game. And against another Lurrus deck. Alright, so we're going to play our Surveil land. Bushwhacker doesn't seem like we want land number 3 for Najeela at some point. So we'll have to see what we can do. Our opponent's going to crack a fetch. Guide of Souls. Okay, so clearly an energy deck. Alright, there's land number 3, which is reasonable. The question is, what do we lead with? I think it's best to lead with the Ajani here, and then follow up with like some of the power boosting creatures. Oh, Ajani just puts more stuff on the battlefield. So when I was building this deck, I was scoured basically all the warriors we have on Arena, and it just seemed like, given like the strengths of the warriors we had, it was better to lean like way aggro. And Najeela sort of rewards you for going wide naturally. But I think it's possible to build like a very mid-rangey deck where once you get like a little bit of a foothold, Najeela just helps you sort of start snowballing. The problem is I don't think we like have very many warriors that like lend themselves to that kind of game plan. And so now maybe you know of some of the comments, but like Ajani obviously can play both roles, but a lot of the strongest warriors didn't seem to like play well that way. So I'm going to just attack in. Like, they could get a free block off the Ocelot Pride, but I would love to flip Ajani here. Alright, so they're going to let it through, and then I'm just going to play the Fireblade Charger. But basically, I think there exists a mid-rangey like Warriors deck that maybe like runs more discard, is a little more grindy, and I think that could also be strong, but I just haven't found it yet. Alright, they're playing their own Ajani. Don't love that, because that gets them to the 3 energy, and that means Ocelot Pride is going to take to the skies. So that's pretty tough, because they're going to start gaining a ton of life. Not to mention, okay, thank goodness they didn't have City's Blessing right there, because it could have been like that other game where they made like a million stuff. So it's pretty bleak right now, but I'm going to slam Najeela / Cloud and just crash in right here. That's going to get us 4 additional warriors, and then we have the Honored Crop Captain power boost. So this is like a ton of damage right here, so we're just trying to trade off as much as possible. Now the annoying thing is this will prompt an Ajani flip, so like we're just sort of conceding that. They don't have a red permanent right now, so like really hoping that works okay, but we've decimated their board and like still have a ton of things out. So alright, Amped Raptor, that's really bad for us, because that's the red permanent they needed for Ajani. So, and let's see what they spin into a Ragavan. So they've rebuilt their board, and now they have a flipped Ajani, which can now nuke something once it creates the cat token. So they are, of course, going to shoot down... Oh, they're shooting us. Okay. Oh, yeah. So I was so focused on them killing Najeela, but the opponent correctly saw the line to get lethal right here. So if they deal the damage directly to us and give 2, additional creature flying, they have exactly 6 points of damage. So we fall to that one. That one. Oh, it was such close margins for these games. Like we were so close, like to untapping and killing them. So X game opponent plays a Scryland. We're gonna lead with Fireblade Charger, uncounterable for good measure, and let's see what the opponent has in store for us. All right, Tender Wild Guide, like a mana dork that can also like grow over time. So going to crack the fetch. You have to be very careful about the colored mana. Once again, like you need black sources for like your hand disruption. Gonna Inquisition right here just to make sure. Alright, so the opponent seems to be a big mana deck. We see Doppelgang and some ramp spells, including 3 Steps Ahead. And we see a Primeval Bounty hiding in their hand as well. So that they have big aspirations. So we're gonna crash in here because it does trade with the Wild Guide if they block. So, and then we'll play another one of these little damage-y dealing exploding creatures. Alright, opponent's gonna Roamer's Routine. Alright, so we don't want them to get too much mana here. Alright, so it seems best right here to do the little trick we have where we can like slam Ajani and flip it right away with Village Rites. It just takes 1 mana source away from them and it allows all of our creatures to crash in. So going to prompt an Ajani flipped right here, and because it gives them like, it just gives them way fewer options to take away their mana. So we're gonna flip Ajani, draw some cards, and create a cat token and blow up their mana dork. This is gonna be like a really quick clock. So it makes me wonder if more of the Ajani decks should be playing stuff like Village Rites, especially because you can play like Bowmasters and like sack the Orc Army tokens, so sort of interesting. So the opponent is desperately playing a blocker right there, but yeah, that's not good enough. We're gonna blow up the blocker and crash him for tons of damage, so they've seen enough. We're on to the next one. Naming Warrior, of course. Gonna play a Bushwhacker and pass. Now this could be a really nice curve out. We have 2 copies of the Najeela in hand, so even if they Thoughtseize or Inquisition one of them, we have a backup. Alright, we see Sultai mana over there, but we drew a Thoughtseize, so we're gonna slam the starting town and just play off curve for a second just to make sure if it's a combo deck we can attack their hand. So we see Omniscience and a bunch of setup cards. They also, so I'm going to take the Omniscience. It's just going to make it harder for them to set up, because that's like one piece of the puzzle. Now they need to find a new Omniscience and still find a Show and Tell. So They have a really good hand for doing that, though, so it is a little concerning. So they're going to fire off, assemble the team, and grab something. Going to slam a Najeela here. We are sort of Najeela flooded, but we know it's a Omnitel, so they're not going to interact with our board basically at all. Though I have seen some versions play Bowmasters. Alright, so they're going to shock in the land. Really hope this doesn't get mana drained right here, but we see like half their hand. Okay, so it managed to resolve. So this is going to be a ton of damage right here. So Najeela's going to crash in, and we're going to make a bunch of extra warriors. Now, what I didn't quite realize when I made this attack is that this is actually lethal right here. So you could just see how crazy Najeela is. Like, it just ended the game. They probably thought they had at least one more turn to go to fish for stuff. So, alright, turn 1 recruitment officer from the opponent. It's a little dangerous, so we have like a very painful mana base because I am trying to swing the 5-color activation of Najeela right here with some starting towns and stuff. Not to mention the courtyards can do it, but I'm gonna Thoughtseize here, and boy am I glad we did. Adeline Resplendent Cathar would be like really bad news for us. So it is really tough taking that much damage against an aggro deck. Right, so opponent's gonna play Rafine's Informant. And as they play, it becomes very clear that they're like a humans deck. And so we're humans versus warriors right now. So let me know in the comments, what's your favorite creature types in Magic? Vampires, Eldrazi, dragons, lots of good ones. So we're a little bit on our back foot. I'm playing like the worst of the power buffing ones, the Crop Captain. Alright, they're just going to portable hole it and just crash in for some damage. We just need to like preserve our life total. Now this is the tough part, is we play like an exceptionally painful mana base because, like I said, I still have aspirations to hitting the 5-color activation on Najeela. Now one thing to note is that Jegantha can activate it also, so that could come up in games should you try out this deck. I don't know if it is worth making the mana base so painful as to enable that though, you know, because as you could see, like once you get enough warriors, you just attack in and just try and win. So the opponent has an intrepid adversary. Fortunately for us, we can trade with both their attackers. So just trying to prolong the game because we have a lot of good cards, and yeah, we don't want to block with Najeela. Like they have a huge lifelinker, we can't just let that attack. Now what I'm thinking about here is, do I want to take, because we have like all mono shocklands in this deck, it's going to bring us all the way down to 4 life right here. Should we cast the second chief? And decide to do it, because if they just slam in our portable hole on one of them, like we just basically auto lose, you know. So gonna play both of them. Okay, so they had a Brutal Cathar, so thank goodness we had 2 creatures. Alright, so they're gonna crash in, and I'm just gonna snap off this trade right here. Because without the boost from that, Cathar trades with our Najeela. So going to slam both Najeela and Bushwhacker here, and probably would chump block the Brutal Cathar. I don't know, it depends. We'll have to see what the opponent plays, but we're like hanging on for dear life right here. Alright, so Anointed Peacekeeper. Alright, so they're naming Jegantha, so Jegantha is basically taxed to oblivion right now. And they did not attack with the Brutal Cathar, because a trade is actually not really good for them because we get back a creature, you know. So an Honored Crop Captain was really clutch right there. Like a land might have put us too far behind. Okay, that is not good. Double Copper Coat Vanguard makes our blocking situation way worse. So they actually should have, well, okay, yeah, it's tough to figure out how to attack, but our Fireblade Charger is reasonable. I'm just going to put Jegantha in hand because we are close to 5 mana, but with the 2 instances of Ward 1 on basically all their creatures, it means that Fireblade Charger can't trade with anything right now because there's too much ward like protecting everything. So we will have 1 point of damage here, but we're going to have to just send it at their face. And I love this aggression from the opponent. Like they're really just pushing and just hoping to catch us stumbling. Now we are just drawing amazingly right here. The opponent is probably just furious at how well we're drawing, but you put the good cards in there to try and draw them. So, all right, they're just going for it again. So, going to block with a Chief of the Edge and a cat token, and see if we can prompt. All right, so they're gonna let us flip Ajani. See if it gets like solituded or swords right here. This works. See if they have a follow-up, and they're out of gas. And we just happened to rip a red permanent off the top, so now all of a sudden we could start putting a clock on them. So I'm going to put a cat token into play and put a little bit of damage upstairs. But that means we're also like, they're going to have something pretty dang nice to start like rebuilding. And another Ajani is absolutely incredible. That's going to allow us to like turn the corner really quick and just end the game. So now we can deal 5 damage upstairs and have a bunch of creatures in play. And just like that, the opponent's like dead next turn, so they have like 1 draw. Alright, they have something though. So they're gonna flash in a Cathar Commando. We're going to deal a little bit of damage anyway. Now that did take away our red permanent, so that does adjust our clock a little bit. Alright, so there's a Thalia. Alright, Secluded Courtyard puts another red permanent in play. So I'm still gonna name Warrior here. And because the Jegantha, you know, it has red, we have red sources. We don't need to like, but sometimes you might need to name Elk to play Jegantha. But yeah, we're gonna activate in Ajani, shoot down Thalia, and I've already seen they have flash creatures, so I'm just gonna hold back the Ajani right here. Though I guess if they flipped it or prompted a flip, it would have been bit anyway. That was enough. So opponent's seen enough. We have the sort of Ajani Village Rites combo right now. Oh. Thoughtseize is really nice. The opponent had a very heavy mulligan also, so it could be that they're a combo deck. They had to fish for something like maybe they're a reanimator or something like that, or they could be a mid-range deck with bad luck. So Thoughtseize was incredible, and yeah, that just ends the game right there. So that's exactly why you got to play. You got to play the right kind of disruption for your color. So blue, you know, you can play counter spells and stifles. Black, you play hand disruption, and I think those are the 2 strongest colors like in Timeless right now. White just gets like the hyper efficiency of the MH3, you know, package of cards like Ocelot Pride, Ajani, Guide of Souls, you know. So we're gonna definitely take the Chrome Mox, and then we get immediately Thoughtseize bugged right here, and they rip a Chrome Mox off the top, and I'm just like, oh my goodness! Like it felt like it went from like an automatic win to like, because they're already locked and loaded with double Dark Ritual. So even if we find another piece of hand disruption, we're still screwed if they find like a Sorin. So now we just gotta try and hurry and kill them, because we see the Saint Elenda in hand, and that was just like a. I mean, I guess it made the game way more interesting, the fact that they ripped a Chrome Mox. Otherwise, it would have just been like an auto win for us, you know. So there's a grief. Thankfully, our hand is pretty redundant. But we don't have them under like a very fast clock at the moment. They're gonna just take a random red creature from us. So we have 2 Fireblade Chargers and an Ajani in play. And the opponent just spewed off one of their Dark Rituals just to grief us right there, which I do think is worth it. I think that's a worthwhile play for them, because they're left with the Dark Ritual, and they still have Sorin as a live draw. We just gotta hurry and end the game before they can put any pieces together, because reanimating a grief right here could also buy them a decent amount of time. Alright, so they're passing. There's the Village Rites. Okay, so we're gonna do that post-combat because we can attack in and get some more damage. So I've just been more and more impressed with like Village Rites plus Ajani, and I think I should be playing it in more shells, because you can also like Village Rites a grief or a Solitude that's on its way out, you know. So like there's some nifty things you can do with it. Alright, going to, before activating Ajani, play out as many creatures as possible just to deal as much damage as possible. And I just play the tap land right here. So this way we can deal 5 damage upstairs and just try and like really slam the door shut. So not to mention we get to speed 2s, which is very important. Alright. His opponent's firing off Dark Ritual. I'm like, alright, like maybe it's just Dark Ritual concede. But they found the Sorin at the last possible second, and I'm just like, oh my goodness. So I'm not like, I've seen some of the stuff in St. Elenda's spellbook, but I'm like please, just don't have something that deals with Ajani. So they're gonna get to grab something from St. Elenda's spellbook and then free cast it. And I'm like, come on, I'm like, oh my goodness, and it's a Faith Fetters. So it shuts down our Ajani and creates a 4/4. And just like that, the opponent is back in it. Now, I'm carefully reading St. Elenda to make sure, like, understand what's going on. Like, that they, we don't have any, like, if we had, like, a Village Rites in hand, maybe we could do something fancy, like sacrificing the creature that's blocked by St. Elenda. Alright, so they're going to activate Sorin and give the other token lifelink. And they're going to reanimate Grief. So, they're just trying to cover themselves, but that's, like, pretty costly, especially if we didn't have any cards in hand. And they're attacking. Now, this I think is a pretty big mistake from the opponent, because we don't have a good offensive position, but we have like a very strong defensive position. The reason is that we have 3 creatures that when they die deal damage equal to their power, and they're all being buffed right now by Chief of the Edge. So you could see me like carefully doing these blocks, but I'm doing it such so basically by only giving up 3 creatures, I can kill both of their guys. Now, the reason to throw another charger under the bus would be like to kill Grief, but I'm not concerned about those. I want to make sure St. Elenda doesn't live to make another token. So I think that was like a pretty tough mistake from the opponent. Maybe they're not familiar with like all the creatures we're running. You know, I could see that, but we remember once again Ajani's dead, but yeah, that was enough. Well, that's a fun little strategy, and you can definitely see how explosive Najeela is, just creating like tons of tokens, and it almost seemed like the support around it just wasn't quite up to par, and like Najeela was still shining through despite that. Now Ajani is super good for this strategy. It creates 2 warriors, and it's like independently powerful. So like there's some nice things going on, but Honored Crop Captain's a little bit tough. Like Chief of the Edge is just so much better, like just giving like a static power boost, especially for like the creatures that die and deal damage equal to their power, you know. So, but you know, we're doing the best we can with what we have. I could see an argument for going all the way up to 4 copies of Inquisition just to have in this super combo dense meta right there, but then you probably lose a little bit of mileage against energy, you know, so it sort of depends. And I don't think this build is solved by any means. Like you could see me considering like a million different warriors right here. Like there's a lot of like, you know, the stuff like Wild Nacatl, you could dip into more colors. You could rock some unclaimed territories, but then you're running into problems with like your Thoughtseize mana right there, you know, so like it is a balancing act. The mana base is super painful right now as it is. If you dropped some of the hand disruption, then you can go all rainbow lands and you jam stuff like Pop Hatch Recruit and things like that. I do think it's possible to do sort of like a Bushwhacker, you know, 8-whack Najeela build, because you could see like all of our 1-drops are goblins anyway, and so we could throw in some Bushwhackers and have those go with the Najeela. We also have like a Goblin Lord that's a warrior, you know, so like there's some interesting things. You could go for like Cowards Can't Block Warriors tribal, like there's a little bit of that going on, but like you just gotta be careful with how many X1s you're gemming in like a Bowmaster's territory, you know. So but yeah, there's a lot of interesting things to think about, and that's the deck. Thanks for watching the video. I hope you enjoyed it, and if you want to see even more nonsense, please consider subscribing. And if you're already subscribed, thank you for your support. Your engagement with the channel helps me know what the people want. Thank you.